and I'm talking about living in expectancy. Living in expectancy, and my subtitle is Between Times. Living in expectancy between times. Expectancy, or having an expectation, is important for our quality of life. When people stop having expectation, when there is no expectancy, people lose hope and life loses meaning. And so it's always important to have an expectation that things are going to work out for you, and the Christian life is based on expectation. And we live our lives in expectancy. Have you ever been in a situation where somebody says there is no hope? And once people tell you there is no hope, life becomes meaningless. And that's why sometimes people feel that they have to end their lives, unfortunately. But God has called us to expectancy. Everything we do in life has an expectancy. You go to sleep in the night, and you expect to wake up in the morning and the sun will shine. And when you live throughout the day, you expect that the sun will set and there will be night. Can you imagine a day when you wake up and the sun never rises? And it's 6 o'clock, it's not up. 8 o'clock in the morning, it's not up. 10 o'clock, the sun is not up. You're going to wondering, what is the world coming to an end? Because your expectation is that the sun will rise. The same thing. If the sun never sets, you're going to wonder what is wrong with your world. So all of us live life on expectancy. Expectancy is what you're looking forward to, your anticipation. It is your hope, and it creates excitement for our lives. And I want to encourage us that God doesn't just want us to live in expectancy. He also wants to fulfill our expectation, so we don't just expect and get disappointed, but he makes our expectations real to us. And that's what we're going to be looking at in this series, and how our expectations become a reality. Genesis chapter 18. Genesis chapter 18 and verses 13 to 14. Genesis 18, 13 to 14. I don't know whether my mic is giving us any problem. All right. And it reads, "And the Lord said to Abraham, 'Why did Sarah laugh, saying, shall I surely bear a child since I'm old? Is anything too hard for the Lord? At the appointed time, I will return to you according to the time of life, and Sarah shall have a son.'" God gave a promise to Abraham. And that's why Abraham left his father's house. And God said, "I'm going to give you a land, and your wife Sarah is going to have a child, a consequential child, a child who will make a difference in this world." So Abraham and Sarah lived their life on that expectancy, that they will find the land and that they will have a child. So they started a journey of faith with God with this expectation that they will have land and they will have a child. And they journeyed for a very long time, lived for a very long time. They were not finding land, and they were not having children. And now Abraham is close to 99 years old. He's a very old man. Sarah is very old. And God comes to him and speaks to him that now is the time to make the promise of God real to us. One of the things we have to be very firm on is that God is a God of promise. And every Christian lives his life on the promise of God. And the promise of God has got some qualities that we would look at. First, God's promise comes to us as a word. As a word, it tells us what God has in mind for us. Primarily, it comes through the scriptures. But many times, God also speaks to us in our hearts and gives us an expectancy, something to hope for, something to look forward to. And so God's word comes as a word. His promise comes as a word. His promise also comes sometimes as a vision. And in the vision, God tells us what he has already done in our lives. Now, when I say a vision, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to see something very grand. Sometimes the voice of God to us or the promise of God to us is a very soft voice. I remember I was about 14 years old when I believed that God called me to be a pastor, to preach his word and to take care of his flock. I was young, and I wasn't in a church, I wasn't in a prayer meeting, I didn't see a vision, no prophet spoke to me, nobody just spoke to me. I was 14 years old, and I remember the moment. It was in the night, and we were in our bedroom, my mother's bedroom where we all lived. So there are about 5 of us siblings and our mom, and we all stayed in the same room. And I was sleeping on the floor on a mat, and just somehow, I can't even explain it, I just knew that God's hand was upon me, that God has called me, and God was going to use me as a pastor. And from that day, from that night, I've never doubted that God has called me, that God wanted to use me. But that calling did not come because somebody spoke to me, but I heard it in my heart. And for many of you, that is how you're going to know God's promise to you. It's not going to come because a man of God spoke to you or you saw a big vision, but you're going to have a certain deep sense, something deep, something inside so strong that tells you this is what you're going to be. This is what your life is all about. And that creates an expectancy. And it gives you something to look forward to, something to live your life for. And for each one of us, I believe there is a point in our lives when we believe that God was going to use our life for something. It may have been similar to mine, or probably maybe somebody spoke to you about it, or you read the Bible and you felt that a word was for you, and you believe that God is going to use you greatly. If you have such a promise of God, I want you to hold on to it, and I want you to live in expectancy. Everybody say expectancy. Now, I want us to go to the text, and we're going to examine a few things about God's promise and how it becomes real in our lives. So the verse 14, once more, Genesis 18:14, is anything too hard for the Lord? That's a question. At the appointed time, I will return to you according to the time of life, and Sarah shall have a son. Very short verse, but heavily loaded. This passage talks about timing or time frames within which God works his purposes for us. And the first time frame that the passage talks about is the appointed time. Everybody say appointed time. Say it one more time. Say appointed time. Hey, are you in church? I'm preaching and say appointed time. What's wrong with you? Say appointed time. All right. Okay. Now, this appointed time is very important, and I put the Hebrew word for that on the screen. It's moed. Moed. That's the appointed time. It's a very interesting word because this word is used for the tabernacle of gathering. You know, when God was leading Israel in the wilderness, they had this big tent they called the tabernacle, and it was called the tabernacle of gathering. That is where they gathered and God met them. And that is called moed too, gathering. So when God talks about appointed time, it's not just sequence of time, it's a place, it's a time or a moment when time and every event comes together for things to happen in your life. The appointed time is a gathering point for God, a place of meeting, and a time of meeting. You know, many times we go through our lives and it looks like things are not meeting in our lives. Things are scattered. Things are happening. And you're wondering, why am I going through this? What is all this about? Why this and why that and why that? And your life doesn't seem to make sense. But there is a time in your future when God is going to put the pieces together. It's called your appointed time, and everything comes together. And when everything comes together, everything makes sense. Now you don't get it because it's scattered. But one day, there will be an appointed time, a gathering point, a meeting point. Then you will understand why your parents were your parents, why you were born in such a time, why your brother is that, and why your sister is that, and why you even went to school and studied a particular course which you are not using. You know, and you wonder, so I wasted my life. I went to study this. I'm not even using it. But when God brings you to the appointed time, it's a gathering point. He opens your eyes and you begin to understand everything makes sense in God's economy. Everything makes sense. And that's what God is saying to Abraham. He says there is a gathering point in your future. You've been walking for many years in the wilderness. You've had a lot of experiences that don't seem to make sense. Even your name doesn't make sense. You used to be Abraham. I changed it to Abraham, meaning father of many nations, and you have no child. But in the appointed time, everything will come together and it will make sense. That is what the appointed time is. It's a place and a time of meeting. God's meeting point for you in your destiny.